Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist.
Produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of
the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another civilization.
Most of the people in here are just your reflections. They're your mistakes.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
1 million of the planet's 8 million species are threatened.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act.
Your lives and the credibility of the United Nations is at stake.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
The reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization.
They're trying to take you out with bullshit.
The experience of the past 2 years has proven beyond doubt that no nation can appease the Nazis.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
In the language of the U.S. Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This is the Garden of Doom.
Welcome everyone into Garden of Doom, and this week we're welcoming in Stephen and Evan Strong from Australia. And finally, I found some people to talk to me about legends, myth, lore, mythos, and logos from Australia and Aboriginal traditions, etc. So I'm very excited. They are researchers, they are authors, they're historians. They run or affiliated with the monthly conferences, Our Alien Ancestry. So without further ado, I welcome in Stephen and Evan. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for asking us to join your show, Jeff. We're honored to be here.
No, it's my privilege. So, please, introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about your backgrounds and your journeys, and then we'll dive on into the subject.
Okay, well, I'll do myself first, and Evan can follow. Yep. I was actually a teacher. I was a teacher originally in primary school, then I started teaching in high school. And I got involved in Aboriginal or regional education and original culture. And I was involved in writing the course for the senior studies in high school in New South Wales, and then had a fair bit to do with setting the course up. And during that period of time while I was working with Aboriginal people and teaching Aboriginal kids, the kids became very fond of me, and they behaved very well. And the parents, because the kids liked me, they started to tell me stories, and they started to show me information. And it became obvious to me that I'd just been involved with some quite important people writing the Aboriginal Studies course for New South Wales. And the more they showed me, the more they realised that we created a course that was made of lies. And what happened was I got called back to a review of the course about 5 or 6 years later, where the course originally was meant to be something where the teacher had to make contact with the community and set up meetings with the community. We had the whole thing worked out. And it turned out into a massive history course where schools from around Australia, New South Wales, were grabbing this as a way of scoring extra points, and it lost its way. So I was called to go down there, and I knew a lot more about what we should be teaching by then, and I made the mistake of making the point that we were in the wrong basket. And to cut a long story short, I stormed out of Sydney and flew back to Moree where I was teaching, and I told these guys I'd never work with them again. And soon after, I resigned from teaching and became an archaeologist. So that's the long and short of it. If the New South Wales Department of Education had realised what we'd found was correct, I'd still be teaching to this day. But like all institutions, they're very slow to pick up new information. Evan, in your case, it's slightly different, isn't it?
Yeah, so when I went to uni, I ended up doing a major in anthropology and a bit of archaeology in there, a bit of history, a bit of culture studies, and got kind of right into that. And then I think it was a moment when I was doing a speech, and it was about bringing culture into the mainstream. So it was talking about how a lot of cultural knowledge was just being lost because there was no one to give it to. The youth, the original youth weren't that interested, and I said, well, look, maybe it's time to find some people in the wider community that might be interested that you can give that knowledge to, therefore the knowledge does not die. So quite controversial. We're going back to the 90s here, and I got yelled at and booed and the whole thing, and it was my first taste of and I ended up getting a high distinction and ducks the class, much to the rest of the class's dismay over that, because I became public enemy number one. And the lecturer took me aside, who happened to be an elder as well, and asked me 2 questions, and then just went, "Yep, high distinction for you," and done. And then years went by, and I went on to do a bit of psychology and stuff like that, but I'd actually broken part of my back, and I didn't have a lot to do because it was hard to walk around, but we started reading a bunch of Gnostic stuff, Gnostic Christianity. So we're talking Mary Magdalene, Gospel of Thomas, Pastor Sophia, and there was something we noticed in all those texts, that there was a link, there were similarities to the Australian Aboriginal dreaming, and we kind of went, hey, they're talking about the same stuff here. There's a lot of the same concepts, paradigms. It's all there. And then we just both started writing. And
we did 3 books.
We did 3 books
published by
the University Press of America.
Yeah.
And there was a strong Gnostic focus in there amongst the history, the archaeology, and other stuff. And we weren't particularly great writers at the start. But a few people just went, this is like an original idea, put a correlation of these 2 cultures, like, okay, we need to follow through on this, and then,
We did, and then what happened soon after was some elders read the books, and then they called us down to their grounds. Ceremonies were given, and they put us on a task, which was to find the original truth. We've got an advantage on all archaeologists in our country. We've been given ceremony. They haven't. They've been given degrees. And what happens is when they walk onto country and they want to talk about sacred, secret stuff, well, number one, they didn't do...
They just do this all the time.
Yeah.
So they're not listening.
Yeah, and they also come to the place not invited. Now, we're working for the Waka Waka right now, and we work for different Aboriginal people. But we never work for them until they ring us. And we never go there until we're invited. Whereas archaeologists are on a different story. They actually find the information they want. They find the answer they want. Then they go on the country and tell people this is what we're doing.
But we had an elder tell us what they do when they come on the country with their clipboards and everything. And it's pretty much, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. God, we've got to get rid of them as quick as we can. It's yes, yes, yes. Oh, good, they're gone now. We can go back to what we want to do. So,
right. As Arnie Bevs used to say, there was yes, sir.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, she'd say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, have you gone, sir? That was the way they work. So we've been lucky. We've been shown stuff that the archaeologists in this country have never seen. And it's not because we've got degrees and not because we're special. It's because we did ceremony.
And one of their requests was to get it out to the mainstream, get it out to, they said, there's a group of people who know what's going on, but they said the rest of the world needs to know. So that was one of our things. And it was funny at the time, we hadn't got into the ancient alien, the UFO, the visitors from up above. And then they went, you're going to talk about that now? We're like, oh.
No, I said I would.
Yeah.
No, I actually, when I was told that, when I was given one ceremony, because I went down there because they told us that the original people circumnavigated the world in a figure eight. And we were talking about that, and one of the elders said, you do realise we didn't just do it by boat, we did it another way. And I looked at him, I knew what he was talking about. I said, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
I believe you, but do we really want to write about that?
And I said, I don't
want to be rough.
Yeah, we're not going to go down the Red Danican path. Thanks, he can deal with that. We won't. But it turned out we had no choice. Because the one thing we do is when we go into country, we don't go with a plan. We don't go with a pre-ordained idea. We wait for them to tell us what the answer is. And like Evan says, once we know the answer, we just make up the questions. So it's an easy way to do archaeology because the original people belong to the oldest culture on this planet. And they guard it. They don't give it out just because you've turned up with a degree. You have to earn your right to get it. And you have to do it the proper way, protocol. And we know what protocol is. And because we've been given ceremony by probably the most important elder in this country, it means we can walk onto places and talk to people that they can't talk to because they've got a different degree. And theirs is in a university. Ours is old way. So primarily that's how we got where we are today.
Okay. Well, that's a terrific story. So listen, I don't know very much about, as you say, original people. You know, I'm in the United States, so we have First Nations as well. So, you know, I'm going to use the term, and I hope it's not a non-politically correct term, but Australian Aboriginal, because that's, you know, that's what most of my listeners probably use. Or would. It's, and, you know, for the rest of the show, you know, we can lapse back and forth into original people and know that that's basically a synonym, and original people is probably different. I mean, you know, I've spoken to, you know, folks from different cultures and they don't call themselves tribes. They call themselves culture. Some prefer First Nations. Some prefer Native Americans. It's, you know, some just prefer indigenous. So, you know, I'm not trying to. Yeah, it is a minefield, and I just want the listeners to know what the terms mean. You know, without any judgment on them. You know, like most Americans, most of what I know from Australia is, you know, Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Dundee, you know, other kind of silliness, you know, like that. Some, you know, things made it into cartoons or movies or whatever. You know, you hear stories now and then. I happened to be introduced to a book called Sand Talk by someone named Tyson, I think Yunkasporta. I hope I'm pronouncing that even close to correct, which is a fantastic book. My understanding is he is an original, a member of the original people and a pretty well-known thinker there. I do recommend it to everyone. And then you hear bits and pieces here and there, you know, in podcasts. There's all sorts of people trying to do, well, what I'm trying to do. But I would love to hear the story. I'm not afraid of hearing about, you know, UFOs or alien rides, because almost every culture on Earth seems to have that type of origin story, whether it's a star person, gods from the star, whether it's fallen angels, whatever it is, you know, you have Enoch ascending, you have, Muhammad, you know, riding a horse up a rainbow, basically is, you know, it's the concepts, you know, like you drew a line that apparently no one had drawn before. What I've stumbled upon in doing the show is I've drawn lots of these lines too. Some of them turn out to be wrong. But a lot of them seem to, you know, there is some mother culture or cultures. Where it started, I have no idea. You know, if you want to tell me it was the savannas of what's now the Sahara Desert, I believe you. I have no idea. But I know it's old because I know that there's stories all over the world about the Seven Sisters. And I know that you couldn't see the Seven Sisters more recently than 100,000 years ago with the naked eye. So there's that. So anyway, there's my little monologue. Hopefully it'll be the last one. But I would love for you to start wherever you like. I guess I also know well enough to know that there's probably lots of different groups, whether it's tribes, clans, cultures, families, however the original people divide themselves up. There's probably more than one variation, but if you can do sort of an amalgamation, or if there is but one, you can start with creation.
Yeah, we can. That's very easy because we do it often because it's part of the story. Now, in Australia, you've got to understand, and you guys will work this out too, because in America, you have different First Nations tribes. You've got the Sioux, you've got Arapaho and stuff like that. We're the same situation. But we're more severe and more delineated than what the American people are, because in our country, there are at least 500 different tribes. Now, you need to understand something about the tribes and how they work. In Australia, you have certain land that's yours, and then there's neutral land where you can have your fights and you can meet and stuff like that. But I could never go on to another person's country. If I just walked on there, the spirits would kill me because I'm not welcome. I'd have to wait for someone to ask me onto that country, and I'd stand on a hill somewhere. Someone would come up that may know me, then introduce me to others, and then when they're finished, I go back. I'm always a visitor. Now, what you need to understand within each country, they have different ways of getting food. They have different stories. They have their own spirits that are part of that land. But within the whole of Australia, there is only one dreaming story that does not relate to one country, but relates to all country, and every group in Australia have it. And yes, it is the Seven Sisters from the Pleiades. Our mob are adamant that the Pleiadians, and I've heard this so many times, are our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, and our fathers. They say that all the time. They speak about the Seven Sisters and the Pleiadians as being kin, not visitors and not even aliens. You've got to remember, in Australia, we don't have gods. We have what's called sky heroes. We have spirits of the land and we have sky heroes. We don't actually have gods as such because they are the sky heroes. Bayami, we know a dreaming story about Bayami, which has just been interpreted recently in first language. And in that story, it talks about Bayami coming here in a spaceship and landing at Mount Yango, isn't it?
Yeah, so, and then what happened was one of them was hanging out here and went, oh, I don't like this. I'm going to get out of here.
And he's called?
The nameless one.
No Name.
No Name, sorry.
Yeah, No Name landed here and decided, I don't like this place at all. And his brother chased him, right, and found him climbing up this tree that mingled with the clouds. And when it took off, smoke came out the bottom, and it went up to the Southern Cross and stayed there. And then it talks about the wife of Bayami, who's called Burunagulnu. And it says very simply that name, says she was not born from the earth. She was born in the stars above and came down and went back up there. And the whole of the story about the beginning, and we've got the interpretation, it's been done by an archaeologist called Frederick Slater. The term that is used the most is came to earth. Came to earth with 7 senses fully developed. Came to earth and learnt the means of propagating life. Came to the pillars of heaven. It's all about that every way through. Now, that is a common story in Australia, and there is not one tribe that doesn't know the Seven Sisters from the Pleiades, and it's always considered one of, if not the most important dreaming in this country. So yes, it's common. There are many dreaming stories talking about, and engravings talking about them travelling through the Milky Way. In fact, we've been to one place, that's at Bulgandria, isn't it, Evan?
Yeah.
Where Uncle Gabby Duncan told us a story about them coming from the stars and through the Milky Way. And there's a big boat there, which is about 8.5 metres. And he said, see how those 3 kangaroos and wallabies are jumping out? I said, yeah. He said, they brought them here. They weren't here to begin with. So that's an interesting take on kangaroos and wallabies are unlike any other species on the planet. And they are the only animal that can conceive a baby and then decide because the weather's not right, they won't actually make the baby. It stops. And they can hold the baby in stasis for 5 years before they decide, yes or no, I'll have a baby. There is no other animal on this planet that chooses its birth like that. So when it comes to the story. In fact, all of my elders, Kano told me, if we go to a site where they can't tell us a dreaming story from as on top, and they just tell you about the dreaming story on the planet, walk away. He said that every sacred dreaming story in this country is related to above. So when you start to look at the original culture, and as we did, we became forced into this story because we didn't want to do it. You find out that the religion and culture is so locked in. The most famous saying in Australia is as on top, so below.
Okay.
But it never starts so below as on top. It always begins with as on top first. So yeah, from our point of view, I mean, we found a lot of evidence, including skulls, which we'll talk about later, which we believe we've been told is one of the sons of Biami. So from that point of view, the Pleiades and original people, according to my elders, it's the same thing. They are us and we are them. And I've heard that time after time after time. It is a central part of the culture of Australia, and it's always been that way, that the most sacred sites will be about sky heroes, about them coming here, and some of the sites we've worked on are dedicated to that arrival and that continual arrival and staying here, because we've actually found the skulls of 4 aliens in Australia. So yeah, when you find the skulls, when you find metal objects, we've had readouts for where 25% and 42% of the readout doesn't register on the earthly periodic table, we started to get forced into talking about aliens, not because we wanted to, it's because we had to. Right. The evidence is all over this country. And to an extent, that is a reason why so much original archaeology has been hidden and lied about, because it resonates to as on top. And that's basically where our archaeology has been for the last 5 years now. And we get more and more stuff. So yeah, it's not something that's just an isolated story. It's every sacred site must relate to above. The most sacred story we have is about the 7 sisters coming and walking on this planet and having children, which are us. So yeah, it's an easy story to sell because that's all we've got at the moment.
Okay, so let's start with the skulls. When you find the skulls, I mean, do they physically look different than?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have visuals right now, as you know.
Right.
But we have. I've seen, and they're on our website. People can go and look at them. But I'm going to hold up one for you now, and you can see it, but they can't.
Right.
But what you'll notice when I turn it around is it does not have a forehead.
Yeah, it's so much flatter.
The skull slopes backwards, and it slopes backwards dramatically. Now, this has been completely built, and what people need to understand, the ones who can't see this, that around about 80% of your brain is above your eyes. If you saw this skull or went to our website to look at it, you'd find that no percent of the brain of this being is above the eyes. It's massively different. What's also interesting is I'll hold you up a picture of one that's been completely made. Can you see the shape of the skull?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, basically there's eyes and a ridge, a brow, but there's no forehead, and it goes backwards almost
like a flask.
Yeah,
and it goes backwards. We're measured. The widest part of our skull is 13 centimeters. The widest part of this skull is 17.5 centimeters. But the scary part, and this is what when I looked at these, and I've looked at 4 of them, and I've worked on 2. The interesting part is there's no sutures. Now, this is very important. And by the way, the government knows about this too. That we've got the bones. We're not allowed to take them outside the front door, and we're not allowed to get them analysed, but they can't take them off us. But they've stopped us from more work. And we've got a scientist in this country that's looked at this skull and says, I don't know what it is. Now, what's interesting about this skull, the one we found, is that, yeah, it's got no forehead. Its eyes are 46% larger than ours. Its brain is around about 1,800 cc. We're 1,300. We're not in the ballpark here. But the most amazing part of this being, I mean, you've got between your eyebrows a little ridge there.
Mm-hmm.
This particular being, between its eyebrows, it sticks out. It doesn't drop in, it sticks out. There is nothing. I mean, there's nothing about that being. If I'll hold up now, I'll show you this. This is a sapien. And I'll also hold up for you the other one.
Right, I can see.
When you look at the two, look at the noses. They have nothing in common. Look at the eyes. They have nothing in common.
Let me try
and
and
the forehead. There's nothing in common.
Let me try and describe it to the audience. The bridge of the nose basically protrudes straight out from the forehead, almost like if you were doing our cartoonist drawing straight out. Whereas a human nose, there's a little indentation, and then there's a little protuberance, but then you have the nasal cavity. Also, if you turn the head face-wise, not face-wise, but top of the skull-wise, with the eyes and the nose looking downward, it basically looks like almost like the shape of a cartoon money sack without the dollar sign and without the it's more of an even spacing on the bottom, almost like a fatter and flat bottom teardrop. So that's sort of the shape. And yes, it goes backwards. It's not like the xenomorph from Alien, but it's closer to that than it is to us. But it also isn't that close to Paracas Man, which those skulls seem to be much closer to, the xenomorph from Alien or other sort of
they are.
elongated
from
skulls.
That tradition, you're right. But the sort of the Paracas Men have the skulls sort of they sort of run back and open up. This one runs in a different direction because it runs down.
Right.
But the most amazing part with this being is I was lucky enough before the site's been closed down permanently, which it has 2 days after I left it, and I got quite a few threats, in fact, many, many threats to put me in jail for going to this site. But what was really interesting is, yes, the eyes are massive, and the Cherokee call them the moon people, and they only come out at night. And it's obvious to me that this being, unless it was born with sunglasses, could not come out during the daytime. Its eyes are too large. But that wasn't the part that shocked me the most, because I was trying to find an explanation. Okay, I couldn't find sutures. All hominids and all sapiens have sutures. These don't have sutures. I knew that at 17 centimetres it would be impossible for a woman to give natural birth to this being. But what really threw me was when we were working on one site, which had been closed down by the government, and the farmer was told there's nothing to see here, it's a normal Homo sapien. Well, he gave up after 2 years, and I was contacted, and I went down and looked at it. And I picked up the humerus bone. And for anyone that's not sure about that, that's the bone from the top of your shoulder down to your elbow. And I'd already picked up the femur bone and put it against mine, and it was exactly the same length. And I said to people, well, I think this being's 5'10" high, because it's got exactly the same length of femur of mine. But when I picked up the humerus bone, I went up to 8'10". And the reason was our humerus bones work between about 29 to 31. Okay? A basketballer might be 31, and most of us are 29, 30. Gibbons are 35. This humerus bone I put against my arm, and it went down past my elbow, half the way to my wrist, and I didn't have the elbow joint on it. It was broken. And it measured 43.
Wow.
Now, that's 8 centimetres longer without the elbow bone, so I've got to throw at least 3 more there to 48, maybe 50. And the bone was less than an inch thick. And I'm looking at this and saying, what have I got here? I've got eyes that are so damn big, you couldn't come out during the day, but I've got an arm here. Well, you can't play tennis with it. You can basically do nothing with it. It's too thin and too long. It should be much thicker, like a Gibbons, which is 35, because if it's that long, it is the primary limb. And it was so thin and so long, I said to myself, this arm is not going to work in our gravity. Now, if I halve the gravity and halve the amount of sunlight, but that wouldn't be on this planet, then that being makes sense to me. But it doesn't make sense, particularly since we found 4 of them. And they're spread over 2,000 kilometres, aren't they?
Yeah, in several different states and geographic regions and climates.
Yeah, coastal, riverine and desert. They've been found in, spread over 2,000 kilometres. And I've got to tell you, the one I looked at had the front 2 teeth pulled out, which is an initiation that tribe gave until after Cook turned up. So this being is not some people said it's a deformity. How do you get a deformity where your brain is 500 cc larger? But the point I'm making is everything about this being tells me it can't be born on this planet. It's that simple. So when it comes to us saying, what is it? Well, I can tell you what it's not. Because there's no sutures, it's not a sapien. It's not a hominin. But it has a brain that's 500 cc larger. It has eyes that are larger. It has a much longer limbs than us. And if it was walking down the street, everybody would notice it. Because it looks so different to us that there's no denying it can't be us because we are sutured beings and this is not. So with that site, I went to.
Can we talk about I have a question. Was there anything different about the jaw and the mouth?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the jaw of these beings is much wider. Their face is much wider. In fact, I can hold up the 2 jaws now for you now. And I know that they can't see it, but you will be able to.
Oh, yeah,
You'll see that this one they're a lot different from each other.
Yeah.
Much different. One is much wider. It's spread out more. The bones on the side, can you see the bones on this one compared to the other one?
Yeah, the cheek ridge is much, it's a much more prominent gap
the
between
whole
there.
structure of the head. And of course, Jeff, that does explain something that no scientist has ever been able to properly explain. Because they tell us that around 250,000 years, but they've moved it up to 800,000 years now, we had a monkey mummy and a monkey daddy, and they made us. Now, the fact that all monkeys, apes, primates have a suture on top of their, they don't have any sutures, they have a sagittal keel, and their brains can never get larger, is a minor point. The major point is this. If you look at orangutans and chimps, which are supposed to be our closest enemies, you look at them, you find they're all the same height, same coloured hair, basically the same face. There's minor differences. They move at the same speed. They have the same weight. Then you look at 7 billion humans on this planet, and you find that every one of them is completely different. We have 7 billion different faces. We can stand 1/2 metre high. We can stand 2.5 metres high. We can weigh 40 kilos. We can weigh 400 kilos. We can run at 3 k's an hour. We can run at 40 k's an hour. We have different eye prints. We have different fingerprints. We have a different heart rhythm. We have nothing in common, yet we're supposed to come from the same mother and father. But if we come from the mother and father I'm showing you, then I can see how our faces and everything about us can be so different. Because if our mother and father, the 2 I've just shown you, they are the 2 extremes of human faces you could ever get. Put them together and you get everything. But if you put together a monkey mummy and a monkey daddy, you should get monkey-like beings like we see with chimps and orangutans. You don't see them looking that different. And there's this great line in Madagascar, I think I was watching with my grandson, where they were calling out a zebra. And they said, 15th line's 26 across, because they all look the same.
Right.
And humans, we are the only beings on this planet that all look different. But we're supposed to come from the same base of the monkeys and apes that all look the same. Well, that doesn't make sense on any scientific level you can name.
Well, the reason
it does make sense.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
When I went to that burial site and I looked at what was there, I said, well, there's Mum, there's Dad. By God, when you put them together, you're going to get anything. So, yeah.
The reason I asked about the jaw is I sort of expected it to be wider because the description of the body almost sounds like the urban legend here in the United States of the Slender Man. And it looks like it has like a smile. And, well, you might look like you have a smile if you have a much wider mouth, but also the bigger eyes. So I know that the audience couldn't see it, but the skull, the closest parallel I can think that there might be in pop culture is Black Manta from the DC universe, Aquaman's enemy, his sort of helmet with his wide eyes. If that was a skull as opposed to a helmet, it sort of looks like Black Manta. Now, not the body at all. The Black Manta has a typical superhero body, a supervillain body, like He-Man, all jacked up. But this sounds like it'd be more tall and thin with very long arms, probably very long fingers as well. But too thin to be a good volleyball player, or like too
the fingers are break.
Too thin to even be Manute Bol, the basketball player who was like 7'7", or from the block shots for until his body broke down. Anyway, so that is really fascinating. This has nothing to do with what you were talking about, or maybe it does, but I don't want to forget it because. Here, and I'm going to guess in other places, sort of what we always hear about when we hear about the Aboriginal origin story is something to do with the Earth flying around on a turtle in space. Is there anything to that, or is that just a fable?
No, it's not a fable. It's not a fable. Who was it? Who was on about that? Auntie Millie Boyd, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. That's big in this country about the turtle. The turtle carrying the earth. Now, we've heard that quite a few times when you said that. I just thought of Auntie Millie Boyd, who's probably the last full old way elder. Oh, there's two left in this country, Auntie Trudy and Lewis Walker. But she was really strong. And she used to talk about turtle dreaming all the time. That's interesting because turtle dreaming is very much a woman's dreaming story, isn't it? Yes. Creation story. Men don't have much to do with creation. We believe that the moment of conception is decided between the incarnated soul, the woman, and the spirit. The men have nothing to do with it. We just have a bucket of sperm that we just put in there, and they decide when they want to use it. So turtle dreaming is very much a woman's story, so I can't say much about it. But I do know the women talk about it all the time.
Okay.
It's a very important story.
Okay. All right. Well, back to where you were. So we have the seven sisters from the Pleiades. Now, were they all female? Or are you saying that those skulls belong to all females and they mated with men, or were they both male and female?
No, there's a man in this. There always is.
Okay.
The story with that, and this is interesting, when you go around Australia, which we've done, and we've heard the story of the seven sisters, the deeds of the seven sisters and what happens to them is identical. It doesn't matter whether we go to Port Ledland or I go to Byron Bay or down to Tasmania. It wouldn't matter. That'll be the same. But the story of the male does vary, because when the sisters are escaping, they're being chased by Orion. And Orion, as you know, is the hunter.
Right, the hunter.
And he's chasing them. Now, whether Orion is a serial killing rapist, a spurned lover, or somewhere in between, that can vary from place to place.
It does, actually.
It does a lot. The male's role in this varies from being 30 years in jail, at least, to someone who was spurned and missed out. But in that story, at one stage he captures two of the sisters because he's got weapons. But the main sister, and that always is the same, she brings them back and has magic that is way beyond any technology that Orion has, and saves the sisters. And what's interesting with this story, Jeff, is we have the story of them coming, but we never have the story of them going, do we?
Oh, yeah, I've wondered about that, actually.
Now, I have been told by the Art of Martha that there was a meeting that took place about 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
Where the seven sisters, for the first time ever, were reunited. And that was a very important time for original people, for old way people. And this is the first time they've united since they came. 6 of the sisters were original, and I love the fact that the 7th one was not. She was white. And that's really important because we're very much follow the teachings of Orichalcum, which is black fella, white fella dreaming, where all of the information and all the secrets and all the stories and all the religion and all the ceremonies should be shared. We're very much into that. So now, yes, we know they came, but it's been made clear to me time after time. I don't think they left.
Well, you did
I think they stayed here.
You did say sky heroes, and you did say repeat visitations. So it's possible they came and left, or some came and more came. But what are some of the other sky heroes? I guess the Seven Sisters are heroes. I guess Orion in his own way is hero or villain or necessary, male id. I'll let someone else smarter define his role in this. But who are the other sky heroes, and when did they appear?
Well, that's the point with this, because we've got Biami, which is obviously a male. He came. I would say that he's come after them, but we can never be sure of that, because original dreaming stories are very strong on a lot of things, but not on numbers. So you've got him. He brought his son Duramulin, he's a very important being. In fact, he sort of took over as lieutenant. Bubadi. There were two at the very first dreaming story. This is a dreaming story, the creation of humanity. So we're going back well before, because they've come at that stage too. That's very important to understand. They've come more than once, but the very creation of humanity, we know that story. And in that story, Biami brought humans here. Then it says he buried them in the ground for a long period of time. And they came out when all the game was there and everything was growing and everything was flourishing, and they did really well there. But what's interesting in that story is you've got Bubadi, who is the male figure, the creation figure. Then you've got Numbadi, the woman. And in the dreaming story, it talks about the fact that when the men were buried, the woman was there, wasn't she? Already there. And when they came out of the ground, she was still there. So what we've got, even when you're talking about these dreaming stories, we've got the male dreaming stories because we're allowed to hear those stories. But the female dreaming story, and I've tried to ask about this, okay, the two men got buried and were there for thousands of years, but you never told us what happened to the women. And in fact, in that dreaming story that I'm talking about, Slater made it clear that we know very little of the women's story because this is the men's part of the equation. So we're not really sure what the women did while we were buried. Whether they didn't need to be buried, I'm not sure. But that one was called Numbadi. So yeah, there are different people who've come, and the interesting part is when they came, they brought with us, or we brought with them, and we did it together. We created one language, which is called the first language. And if you even go to the Bible, you'll find at the Tower of Babel, it talks about the fact that there was one language, and then all of a sudden that language disappeared and we had many languages. And after that, what basically happened was warfare started, mistrust started, the whole thing fell apart. Now, Slater calls this first language, he calls it spirit and soul language, and he claims it's the most sacred language that was ever spoken on this planet. It is an original story, but it was given to the world.
Well, that tower story repeats. It repeats in Mesoamerica, including, I think, in what's now Peru, and I think in southern Mexico, or what would be Central America. So that's the Tower of Babel story repeats as well, obviously with different names, but it's the same story.
Yeah, well, it's based on the truth. It's based on the truth. There was one language, and we're quite lucky because we have a copy of that language. What happened was there was a lady called Eliza Hamilton Dunlop in the 1830s. Now, remember, we started settlement. The British started the invasion there in 1790. So this is 40 years after the British have just got there, and this place they went to was in the Central Coast. And this particular woman was the wife of the magistrate that set himself up there. And she won the trust of the tribe there, the Wallamai tribe. They trusted her implicitly. She's written in Wikipedia as a translator of Aboriginal languages. And what happened was, so much did she win their trust that they sat her down and got her to write up the very first language that was spoken, not just in Australia, but throughout the world. After a lot of searching, we stumbled upon the book that Slater wrote that had the first language in it, and we've now found, Evan's now found our handwritten notes. And
Yeah.
what we, yeah.
Yeah, and which we'll put in a future book.
What we're going to do after a lot of arguments, and there's a lot of elders who aren't happy about this, in our second book on Slater, we're going to put up the full language.
Wow.
All the sacred words and how they're spoken. And then my argument has been, why can't stop this going up? Because it doesn't belong to a tribe. It belongs to the country, to the world. It was the very first language. And what they say is when you speak this language, you are in contact with both the spirits and the aliens that helped create this language with us.
And in a way, it respects the fact that those original elders gave her the dictionary. So all we're doing is continuing what she did.
And this language is called Murray Gawalda, and it is the very first language that was spoken. So when we talk about the aliens coming here, we don't fully understand what they gave us and how involved they are in our evolution. I've been told this language we made, and it was inspired by them. So this is the best of both worlds, this language. And people should ask themselves, why was it considered bad to all speak the same language? I mean, for God's sake, if we all speak the same language and people don't lie, and you've got to remember in indigenous societies, lying is considered a mortal sin. In Australia, many languages in Australia don't have the word for lying, do they, Evan? Most original languages don't even know what the word means because you don't lie. Now, if you had a society where no one told a lie and everyone understood each other, it would be better than what we've got today. So, yeah, when we talk about the aliens and we talk about what they've left us, we've stumbled on all sorts of things. I mean, we've stumbled onto metal objects. We've got quite a few that have been analysed by the top laboratories in this country.
Let's go back to the metal in a second.
Ridiculous.
I want to, again, I'm drawing a line here, and it may be imperfect, and you probably can't say the answer with any level of surety, but it sounds like if you have the original language, some people would call that Enochian, some people call that the language of the angels, right? This is the same language.
It's the same language, yeah.
Okay.
Soul language,
Okay.
spirit language, yeah.
All right. So the metal. So I want to go back to the skulls that you found. Around how old do you think they are? From what time frame do you think that they were? I know you told me that the stories aren't so good with numbers, and you know, so I won't ask when they're saying the seven sisters first came down or anything like that. It's just a long time ago. But how old do you think? How old do you think those skulls were that you found and the bones?
Okay, well, we can tell you with one of them because I've got some very good indicators there. The one where I went to the site where we had the complete skull buried there, it was buried on a ridge, and it was buried there. There are many other skulls there. There's another skull we found there that is the most robust skull that's been found in Australia. The skull thickness is 16 mils. It's got a massive brain too, and they were all buried on a ridge. And what we found out was the Murray River used to run underneath that ridge, which is water. And all of these people were buried with their arms crossed, their knees up against the chest, and they had red ochre across them, which is sacred. So this is a sacred burial. What we know is the Murray River moved from that location 60,000 years ago. So because it's on a ridge and it's facing east and water, we're talking about part of Australia where it might get 10, 12, 15 inches of rain per year. So water is very important in those areas. So in that case, what I can say about that particular being is a minimum date of 60,000 years, because that's when the river actually moved about 2 kilometres, a fair bit. And I've been told by a couple of locals, oh yeah, the Murray River used to run here, and they found it ran there until 60,000 years ago, which theoretically in Australia, the oldest bones ever found in Australia are dated between 45 to 60, aren't they? This would make them older.
And when we did get it to that scientist here in Australia, we said, "Oh, could you do some carbon-14?" He kind of laughed at us and went, "Oh, that won't date it. That only goes back to 40,000 years."
Yeah, he just looked at
something else to date that.
He has OSL. He does have OSL. He's got a portable machine to do that. He said, this is way past the time of carbon-14. And as you know, carbon-14 runs out around 50 to 60,000 years. It's not reliable past that point. He said, we wouldn't even consider doing that with this one. And that comes from probably one of the top archaeologists, not just in this country, but in the world.
Right.
He's an apprentice of Chris Stringer's.
Right.
So this guy has a lineage, right?
Yeah, the time usually is based on the geology that they're around, or sometimes the tools or other pottery shards, and everything gets older. I mean, George Mitrovic, who Stephen knows, but Evan doesn't, in his book, he points out how there was pottery discovered in a cave in Japan dating from a time that was thousands of years before humans supposedly knew how to do pottery. So and everything keeps getting older. I mean, skulls keep getting older, and the number of hominin species coexisted and overlapped. Some of it gets more recent, but some of that gets older as well. So I'm not surprised that they're way off, and I think it's just a matter of time before science catches up to that too. So, all right. So the metal, that's where I interjected. So, tell me about the metals, and then I have a question. Let me just ask it, but go back to answer the metals first before I lose it. In the stories of the Sky Heroes, do any of them match any of the attributes that are typically associated with any of the pantheon of sort of the Western mythologies, or any other sort of, even like the Vedic Indian culture, or, even like the attributes of some of the angels and demons, if any of it matches at all. And again, we'll start with the metals and give you time to ponder that one, which might just be a simple no.
Well, with the angels and stuff, yes, definitely.
You've got the Wanjinas.
The Wanjinas, which are basically painted up in Kimberley region, and they basically wear helmets. I asked Tony Bev about the fact that on Darkingong land, why is it I can never see a neck? I said, it looks like they're wearing helmets. He said, we didn't call them helmets, we called them hats. Now, I can tell you, original people don't wear hats. There's never been a depiction of someone wearing a bowler hat. It was an original person. So, yeah, that's a common story.
And then you've got the ones that are like slender ones that live in the rocks, where they're Quinkins.
Quinkins, yeah.
Tall and really skinny.
Look, they talk about all the different beings, and they talk about the fact they all lived here and were here for quite some time. You've got little people, you've got the Barinians, the hobbits, people call them, the ones that are 3 foot tall. Then you've got the smaller ones again. Then you've got obviously the Yowies and the Sasquatch. There are so many stories about different beings. In fact, we are in contact through Leah with another being called Mesrith, and we put out a book called Interview with Alien. And in it, he talks about the fact that he's been called an archangel and a dark angel, hasn't he? He's been called both.
Yeah.
I think that is and he doesn't deny the fact that there are spirits and a creator. He says that's all true too, but you do get us mixed up with angels a lot, and they've made that clear. And I think you'll find in the mythology of Australia, man, there are so many different beings here, so many different types of beings. Even when it comes to what you call the Sasquatch and we call the Yowies, there's two types. They're the ones that are massively tall things that go around and rip off heads off wallabies and stuff like that. Then they've got another type, which is basically a spirit form that can come into your bedroom. It's done that. So, yeah, all of that crosses over in Australia. Wow. I mean, like I said before, we went to Bulgandria, and the story there is here. Here is what we call Thoth, because he's carrying the moon and the sun in his two hands, going across the Milky Way in a spaceship. And that was common. It was quite weird because they didn't even put that up. Because Ancient Aliens filmed that and they never put up that part.
Probably pop up one episode.
Oh, yeah.
There's still bits popping up, and it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You just popped in an episode
I know.
about a couple of months ago, actually. You just popped up randomly, so...
Oh, great.
It was about the Pleiades. It was about the Pleiades. The Seven Sisters about the Pleiades.
Well, Thoth sounds like Thoth, right? Doesn't Thoth sound like Thoth, which is also, linked to Osiris and Apollo, and, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
We
got Thoth here. We call him Bulgandri, and there's a picture of him with rays coming out of his head on the top there. He's standing on a spaceship that's came a great distance.
Ibis-headed ones as well.
We've got ones with an ibis head. Yeah, we've got an Ankh engraved in one spot with an ibis footprint next to it. Thoth is all over Australia. He's common. He's everywhere. We've got Ankhs all over the place there. We went to one site. We were taken there by the senior park ranger, who looked at him, told us it's the oldest engraving on there, and it took about 5 or 6 hours to film it. We had to get the sun out, put water on it, so we could even see it. And even when we took a picture of it, I couldn't see the Ankh. I couldn't see it visually until we saw the picture. And there, it's at least 10,000 years old, and the Ankh in Egypt is supposed to be only 5,000 years old. This is much older. Next to it, next to that engraving, is an engraving, the exact engraving of the god of inheritance from Proto-Egyptian. So yes, Thoth is very much part of Australian mythology. It's there. So yeah, look, all of that stuff is there in Australia. When it comes to the metal, well, that's different, isn't that, Evan?
It is completely different.
There are three. There are 3 pieces of metal, which we have. They've been analysed. One was analysed by Southern Cross University, and there's a laboratory in there, and I thought it was 38 scientists. Do you know how many people work for Graham Hancock? 300.
Lancaster.
Right, that's right, Graham Lancaster. 300 people work for this guy, the head scientist. His name is Graham Lancaster. I'm allowed to use his name. He is prepared for mainstream to interview him about this. I had a piece of metal with me, and he had done some analysis of some of our work. We're tennis players, and I filled in for his team, so it's an old boys network. He does it for free. It works out really well. And he saw this piece of metal once, and he begged me. He said, I want to analyse that. And he put it in his hand, and he said, I don't know what this is. And this guy is one of the best in the world. He travels all over the world talking, okay? So he's not just a scientist. He's the head scientist, and 300 people work for him. So he's not just anybody. He said, I'd love to look at it. And I said, well, I'll have to ask Auntie Minnie Mace. Now, Auntie Minnie Mace picked up 2 blobs of dirt. The spirits told her to pick it up, and she took it home, and she cleaned this thing for about half an hour, and I think I've got it.
Here?
No, I didn't bring it. I thought I did, but I didn't. No, it's upstairs. It doesn't matter because they can't see it anyway. So what happened was she cleaned it, and there was a piece of metal underneath there. And it took a half an hour to get the dirt off, which gives you an indication it wasn't dropped 2 years ago. It took half an hour to scrub all the dirt. It was so stuck onto it. And it had a clasp, a perfect clasp, a round piece where a chain went through it. So we got it analysed. And what took place was, Graham told me, he said, we analysed it about 4 times. And I've got the cut on it, showing you where it was cut. And it turns out that it's 72% aluminium, 3% copper, and 24% can't be analysed.
It's not on the periodic
It's
table.
not on the periodic table. And he said, we tried to get alkalized, we tried to find different ways to explain it, and he tried to explain to me what he was doing, and I didn't understand it. But he did tell me this. He said, we originally tried to cut it, but we couldn't. And we couldn't understand why we couldn't cut aluminium. In the end, they had to get a diamond-tipped drill to cut a little bit off, and it was one of the hardest pieces of metal they've ever dealt with, but it's aluminium. And he told me, he said, you realise if you could manufacture this metal like it is now, you would make billions of dollars, and that's very important to understand, because someone might say, oh, someone made it and dropped it. They wouldn't lose this. So what it is 24%. It makes aluminium harder than steel. It's really hard. So the question is, what is it? Now, we did get a clue in this, Jeff. The clue is this. alloys that are 3% copper and 73% aluminium are not made today. It's around 10 or 12%. That hasn't been done for at least 3,000 years. And then the copper content was between 2 and 4%. This is 3%.
Okay.
So that gives me an indication that when it was made was way back. But here's the point. What's the other 24%? Nobody knows what it is. We've been told that it's the stuff they use on their ships up there, haven't we? We've been told that. And it is now, I mean, we've got it still with us right today, to this day at the moment. It is unlike any piece of metal that's ever been found, and it was found in Australia. Now, people need to understand something. If it's covered with so much dirt it takes half an hour to take off, then it's been here a long period of time. But Australia is supposed to be stick, stone and bone toolkits forever. You can't make this with stick, stone and bone and a fire.
Right.
An open fire. That's not going to melt the metal. It's not going to do this. So you've got that one, and that was found at Carrion. And that one of itself is quite unusual. What's also happened is we found rings in Australia. Now the rings, and this is where it gets weird, but it's the truth. The rings have all been analysed, and they are not of an alloy that's recognised today anywhere. In fact, when I first got this ring and got the chemical readout, I went to the computer for the only time in my life I've ever done this, and I punched in the 5 elements that were there, which is copper, zinc, lead, nickel, and iron. And by the way, let me explain with the rings. I'm going to tell you now. I found no readout anywhere of those 5 metals except in Wikipedia, and I refused to go there for 2 hours. And in the long run, I did. And there it explains, it gives me the readout. And they gave it a name. They call it Orichalcum.
Oh.
And in the readout from Wikipedia, this is what it wrote. Orichalcum is a mythical metal found in the mythical continent of Atlantis.
Right.
And then beneath, and the same page, I'm not lying, Jeff, there's a picture of Orichalcum. And I think to myself, hang on, it's mythical, and there's a picture of it. And what it is, it's a picture of a 6th century BC Roman galleon that sank near Sicily, and in it they found 83 ingots of Orichalcum, which is made of copper, zinc, iron, nickel, and lead. The same 5 elements. So, what happened is in Australia, we found 2 rings, both at the same place in New South Wales at a place called Hill End, which is a gold mining area, which is found on 33 degrees north, south of the equator. Both these things were found. One was found 4.5 metres beneath the surface. The other one was found 1.5 beneath the surface by 2 different metal detectors by 2 different people 5 years apart. Now, what's interesting is, yes, all of these rings are made from Orichalcum, except the third one. It's got 99.5% copper and zinc, like the first one, and the second one is 99.3% copper and zinc. And then the other 3 elements are placed in there like homeopathic drops, right? So, the one we've got, the first one that was found there, is pure Orichalcum. And it's got about 0.12% nickel. The third one, both of them are 99.5% copper and zinc, exactly the same percentages, but different amounts of copper and zinc. The third one is 1.12% nickel. The first one is 0.12% nickel. And then it goes down. But the third one doesn't have the lead. Now, the lead in the first one is 0.269. The missing amount is 0.268. And that one, that little amount, doesn't register on the periodic table also. So we've got a second one, a small amount of about a quarter of 1%, which is not much. But we do have a third ring, and there it's 41.8% doesn't register.
Oh.
Now, that one's the most fascinating ring of all. And I didn't bring it with me. I did. I did bring it with me. And I'll show it to you. I thought I brought it. That ring breaks all the rules. And I'll hold it up to show you. There it is there.
Oh, wow.
Now, the first thing you'll notice is it's a ring But I could fit probably 4 of my fingers inside there, and
Yeah.
it'd still be round.
It's a big ring. That's for a big finger.
That just came in. And it's got 2 sort of flying saucer things on top.
Oh,
This ring is
yeah. I was going to ask what that was. I was going to ask if those were serpent heads, but they sure aren't. Yeah, they could be flying saucers. That what they look like are
because
symbols.
we know what's in it. Here's the interesting part. I've done this has been analysed by a machine that costs 6 figures. There's only 2 in this country. It's electronic and it doesn't cut. And what we found out is it has in it 6 elements that end in IUM. There's palladium, rhodium, cadmium, gallium, and a couple of others. All of them, and by the way, this is a ring that is at least 10,000 years old. It's been broken 3 times. All of the IUMs were discovered in the 1800s or 1900s, but one of them is very interesting. One is gallium. Now, I don't know if you know much about gallium, because I didn't know anything about it, Jeff, to be honest.
Nope.
Well, you don't because of one thing. You can go and dig it up anywhere on this planet, you never find it.
Huh.
You can't do it that way. You will get it as a byproduct if you melt aluminium or steel at 4,000 degrees Celsius, right? And then you get 0.1. This has got 6.89 gallium. It's got cadmium in there, which we use in batteries. It's got all these IUMs that are used in electronic circuits, in solar collection, all sorts of sophisticated things are all in this ring. Now, the interesting part is it's been broken 3 times. You've only got to touch it. It's stuck together with super glue. And inside it, you can see this sort of green top. Underneath it, when you break it, there's a cable underneath that's not even attached to this. And it's 40.8% iron and 41.8% we don't know. The whole read-up of this came up to 58.2%. There was 41.8% that didn't register. So what we have here is another example. We've got 3. One at Carrion, one at Hill End, and this one. And by the way, this one was found not in Australia, was it, Evan? This one and another one I've got, I'm just holding up now.
Mm-hmm.
These were both found together at Angkor Wat.
Oh,
in
Cambodia.
1972, when the Americans were helping 1969 or 70, something like that, when the Americans were helping Cambodia.
Okay.
Helping, right.
Helping. And then somebody came in, a vet came in with a metal detector and went around the grounds of Angkor Wat and found both these rings. And what you find with both these rings is, and I'm holding them up for Jeff now and other people can't see them, they're not made for our fingers, ladies and gentlemen. They're very, very heavy, and they're made basically, and this particular ring I'm holding up now has got 6 animals on it. 2 elephants, 2 monkeys, and 2 pigs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's male and female. And this is made from, guess what it's made from? Orichalcum.
Okay.
It's got the 5 elements. They've all got the 5 elements. So what we're finding is with this collection of rings that have been found, some from Atlantis, and I can tell you the 3 rings from Atlantis all have the same symbols on them. They have a symbol on there, and we didn't recognise what it was for quite some time, but the Berbers use it. It's a symbol for Atlas.
Oh, okay.
It's a relief. Atlas was the son of Poseidon. And these rings have 4 of those, and then they have 5 of something else. They have 5 circles with straight and vertical lines above and below. But all the circles are different widths. They're not the same. I don't know if you know this, but the inner circle is Atlantis. The Temple of Cleito and Poseidon was found inside 5 circles of rings of water and soil, and it was in the middle. So what we've got on those 2 rings are 5 circles of different lengths and the symbol for Atlas, and they're made from Orichalcum.
So it's symbology of its origin.
Yeah, you get a story there, and then when you throw in the ring that was the metal object that was found at Carrion, which is 24% not from this planet, and this one which is 41% not from this planet, another one which is 0.5 or 0.25% not from this planet, you get more evidence about the fact. And I mean, for God's sake, no one ever said that Angkor Wat was melting steel and aluminium at 4,000 degrees and had something that could do that. And no one ever said that they discovered all these IUMs that we've just discovered now, 10,000 years ago. That's not part of their story. But you know what? It's the part of science. They're things that have been found. So it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. And the evidence is all over Australia in different forms.
Wow.
We've got it in metal, we've got it in skulls, and we also have it in rocks, don't we?
Exactly.
All right. I want to move off this for a second. It almost feels banal, but I want to cover the major parts of mythology. And so I will ask these two questions. You know, is there an afterlife, heaven and hell kind of thing? And is there an end of days? Is there a Ragnarok or a Revelation story type as well?
Yes and yes. The aliens have made it very clear to us, and so have my elders. Yeah, there is it's not heaven and hell. I've got to make that point, because one of those three rings from Atlantis is actually an interesting ring. It's one that we've kept. We've had to deal with the other two because they've created a lot of issues. But there is a heaven and hell. They've made it very clear. And I've done a ceremony with the hell ring. And it's much worse than Dante's Inferno. Hell is inside yourself. It's in your soul. You don't need to go anywhere to find it, believe me. What that ring did, it's one of those three rings from Atlantis. Tolkien is correct about one thing with the rings. They are inherently evil. I've tried to work and fix one, didn't I, Evan?
Yep.
Didn't work.
Nope.
It can't be done. You cannot change them. The ones from Lemuria, which is what this one is, inherently good. This one, also inherently good, but the ones from Atlantis are the opposite. So yeah, there is a thing called heaven and hell, for sure. It exists.
So was Atlantis sort of the bad guys and Lemuria were the good guys?
Not quite like that, but yes and no. To begin with, we have another ring which I'm not showing today. No, I have got it actually. We've got this ring here. This ring, which only just turned up recently, we've been told, which is also made from Orichalcum. It's that same gold effect, right?
Yep.
This one marks the time when Lemuria and Atlantis were in peace and worked together, and they worked as one. Atlantis was supposed to be heaven on earth. The reason why aliens actually lived in Atlantis was because they thought this was the time they were waiting for. And you're asking about the time that's coming, and I'll get to that in a sec. Because yes, there has been a ceremony that has created that. So this ring was meant to celebrate the fact that East meets West. That's what Mesrith called it, didn't he?
Yep.
This is the ring of freedom, right? So it's a very important ring. It's only just turned up. But as it stands right now, Mesrith has made it clear I'm not even allowed to wear it. And of course, I have.
Who is Mesrith?
I've worn all the rings,
You've mentioned Mesrith before. Is Mesrith that spirit that you're in touch with?
Well, he's an alien. He's been here since we've started. He's basically in that council that sort of oversees what we're doing here. And he's the one. And what we're leading up to is what you said about this sort of Ragnar sort of thing where there is a change that takes place on this planet. Yes, they are aware of the change that's supposed to take place here. People should be asking not if aliens are here, but why. That is really the only important question. If is a waste of time, they are here. They've came here for an ascension on this planet. This planet has within it the potential to affect not just here, but the whole cosmos. So yeah, there is a ceremony that took place, and we know of the ceremony because we were there when it happened. It happened at Uluru, which is the middle of Australia. It's the rock in the middle of Australia, the big red rock there. It happened over 3 years ago. We were told of this ceremony nearly 10 years before. We were told by elders that there will be a ceremony that takes place at Uluru that will change the world. And I said, oh, yeah. At the time, I thought, right, okay, yeah, right, that sounds interesting. I'm not going to be telling people that. But we getting elders telling us the same story, that at Uluru they've been doing ceremonies there for 9 years that lead up to one that took place 3 years ago when we had the conjunction of the summer solstice and the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn. That happened about 3 and a bit years ago. We were told the ceremony would take place at Uluru and a magic box. That's their term, isn't it? The elders used the term. A magic box could be activated that would clean the planet and make it possible for humans to stay here. So that particular ceremony was going to take place on the 21st of December 2020, wasn't it?
Yes.
At Uluru. And apparently elders from all over Australia, we know of some elders that walked for months. They couldn't go by car, they had to do it old way to turn up at that ceremony. Now, we also know on that day and the day after, at 10 o'clock, the original people went to Uluru when there were about 1,000 tourists there and kicked them out. Never happened before. Made them all leave and did not let them come back that day or the next day. Now, that's true. We know that. So what then happened was they did the ceremony. But we're also told this, the ceremony would turn on the magic box, but unless there were a certain number of humans around the world meditating on that particular rock at the same time, nothing would happen. And we knew a keeper, an original keeper of the prophecy that takes place if nothing happens. And I can tell you that 2012 movie of the monk ringing the bell with the water coming over the top in the Himalayas is nothing compared to what was going to happen if this ceremony wasn't successful. So the ceremony needed a lot of people from overseas, and our job during 2020 was to make sure that we could reach that number, and I never thought we would. In fact, every presentation we gave around the planet, we kept saying, we're not sure this is going to work. We were very clear on that. But we were wrong. The number of people involved in that ceremony was somewhere between 15 to 20 million people that were meditating on that rock. That is the biggest ceremony that's ever taken place on this planet, ever. Now, what's supposed to have happened and will happen is, yeah, the movies are right about a change. And, yeah, a lot of people around the world are saying they can sense a change, but they're not talking about this ceremony as such. That was the precursor for it. And what's supposed to happen and will happen is the Earth is going to ascend. And the Schumann resonance, which I don't have to explain to you, Jeff, I'm sure you're aware of what it is, will ascend at a level that will be running in the thousands, and it will never break from that number. The problem with this is that the elevation is so high and our bodies are so tainted that we would die, because it's above our capacity for our body to cope at such a high level of vibration. This is why they came. This is what it was all about. They thought it was happening at Atlantis. And that's why when they left Atlantis, they've never directly interfered. They can't do it. They made a decision then. We've got to let them do it. And that's why if we didn't get this right 3 years ago, that would have been the end of this planet. They would have just left and said the experiment's over. So, here's the story. We actually were at Uluru at the time when that happened. And what I'm going to suggest to people, if they go to our website, there's an article there where we put up the proof. Because it's one thing to say this is going to happen, that Uluru is going to save the world, and there's a set of crystals which we think came from the Pleiades that were there to start the healing process from within. But where's the proof? And we have it. On our website, there was someone that was at Uluru at the same time, not at the ceremony we did with 300 people, with the rocks, but somewhere else where they filmed Uluru. And it started at 7:32, and at 7:36 there's a picture of an explosion of light that comes out of Uluru and covers the whole sky. It covered the whole planet. People have spoken about seeing it elsewhere, haven't they?
Yes.
We filmed it. Well, we didn't. Someone else did, and we've got a film of it. And you can go to our website and you'll see Uluru. It's in one of the articles there. And then for a fraction of a second, light covers the whole of Uluru at 7:36, but it doesn't cover Uluru. and it's spread out through the whole thing. We've also got the Schumann resonance, and at 732, the Ukrainian measurement, wasn't it, from Ukraine, was 0.3. At 736, it was 32. It went up 100-fold and stayed there for the next 4 hours. So what we've got there is a Schumann resonance increased 100-fold. There's the explosion of light that comes out of Uluru. And then we've got massive pictures around the world at the same time of weird things where lights are coming out of the sky. In fact, in Glasgow, there were so many lights coming out of the sky, the paper there called it the War of the Worlds. It was actually the War of One World. It was all this light coming out in Bosnia, all over the place, all these different things that have happened around that time. People don't realise at that particular time when that alignment took place, Mars moved 6 inches off its axis, and Neptune, is it Neptune, spinning the other way? Yeah. Neptune is now spinning the other way. It's reversed its spinning. It's now got 2 spots. And Uranus is shooting up massive amounts of X-ray. This happened all over the planet. And on our planet, at that time, 2 days later, we had the largest earthquakes ever that's taken place on this planet ever. It was in Antarctica. 9.7, 9.6, then an aftershock of 9.7.
I think I remember
all
that.
All of that happened at the same time. And that was the whole of the solar system was being affected by that alignment, but it was focused on this planet. So what we're saying is, yes, it's a long story to get to it, but yes, what you're talking about with those shows is correct. There is a change that's taking place, and we're in that transition period now. That's the good news. There's some bad news, isn't there? Yeah. We were told, and it was we're told for the right reasons, that this change was going to take place. It would be probably 2-3 years from now, it'll be finished. That was the expectation. But that's not going to happen anymore. It is not going to be. We're telling people it's not decades, it's just a couple of years. And we're told that by others who said that's what's going to happen. It's not going to happen like that. And the reason is, from above, they've told us this. If it happens in 3 years, there are so few humans that will be able to exist. We're not evolved enough that it would be like this. Yes, the earth will change, and the ones who aren't evolved don't go to hell. They just incarnate on a planet that has a lower vibration because ours is changing. What would happen here was there would be so few people that would be ready for this that we would spend all of our time just trying to stay alive. We wouldn't have any of this stuff we've got now. We'd be out in the bush trying to live like original people did 200 years ago. And I don't know how you'd go doing that, Jeff, but I wouldn't go very well.
No.
And all of my time would be spent not meditating and being spiritual. It's like what Gandhi said. A growling belly is not a spiritual man.
Right.
If you have to eat, that's all you're going to do. And they said, no, it is not going to be 3 years. The change is going to take place, but it'll be decades. And I was assured I'll be dead before it happens. And I wasn't very happy about that. They've made that very clear, didn't they? Oh, no, you won't be around. You'll be gone by then. So, yeah, it is going to take place. The earth has changed. We've got a lot of evidence up on our website to prove that those things did happen, but it's going to be a gradual process. We were told if it happened in 3 years, there would be a world war. Nuclear holocaust, it would be, what they call it, horrific.
Yeah.
The way this is going to happen, where it's going to be decades, it will be horrible but bearable.
Yeah,
up and down, up and down. And eventually, the time will come, there will be a time when the whole of this planet, the vibration will ascend into the thousands, and what will happen is many people will just, well, we don't know, do we? We don't know, but they won't be part of this anymore. They will go to other locations. And the last thing I wanted to close with this was they're hoping for 10%. And I said to them once, well, what about the person who's next in line, the one that's 10.0001% that just missed out by one deed, one thought? Do they get the same punishment? And I'm going to use 2 words here, as a Suros or a Gates. And the answer is no, it's not hell. It's not hell. No one's being punished for this, but many of us just aren't ready. Mm-hmm. We're still kindergarten children, and this planet has become a university. So what's going to happen for that person is they'll go to another planet and incarnate, and they've got one deed and one thought to get right, then they come back here. But for others, and I'm thinking of two names I just mentioned, it may be a long, if not never, return. So it's not a punishment. It's not heaven or hell. It's just that every person on this planet is special. The aliens have made it clear there's something about humans that's unique that they all want to copy. And they won't tell us what it is.
I don't know what it is.
We've asked many times, they won't tell us, but there's something about us that is unique that they really admire. And that's one of the reasons they've come here. We should not underestimate ourselves. But what's happened is that change that was going to take place, we haven't evolved since those last 3 years. In fact, if you looked around over the last 3 years, Jeff, the world has been in a permanent state of fear. And they don't want that. Fearful people won't be the people they're after. And because of the state that things are in at the moment, the way they've created this fear, and they've done it deliberately, they did it because of this. People may not know this, but do you know that when the Pentagon announced they were finally going to do a study into UFOs, do you know that was 6 hours after that ceremony at Uluru?
I did not.
6 hours after. It was on the 21st of December, 2020. Look it up. It happened 6 hours after that ceremony. And I can tell you that ceremony was involved in Uluru. Both the Australian government and Qantas tried to destroy the ceremony. They were actively involved, and there's 300 people who back this up because we know what happened there. They tried to destroy the whole ceremony all the way through. And that particular ceremony now is the Earth's future. But it's still got a way to go because there's just not enough humans that are ready to ascend. So what they're doing is they can control the human residence. They're just going to dampen it. It's going to continually going up. It'll go up and down like it is now. And it won't stay on that high level until that final decision is made. Now, I've been told this from the mob there, that it will be decades and it could be up to 1 century, couldn't it?
Yep.
But in saying that, since this all happened, then this other ring turned up. And I have a suspicion that ring can be fundamental in cutting the decades down. And we have asked Mesrith about that, and he won't answer me. He will not answer me.
He's been like Gandalf.
Not answering me. It makes me think that there might be something with that. What I have been told is I'm not allowed to wear this ring for a while. Then we're going to meet some people and they'll tell us some more about this, but I don't know what that means. But very simply, and not very quickly, that answers your question about what you've seen in the different movies about a change that's coming along.
Probably the Hopi best
yes.
Describe that whole scenario. They've got their prophecies, which describe
the blue Kachinas.
Yeah.
The blue Kachinas. Now, the blue Kachinas were seen on that sky that night. One was in America and one was in Australia. And they said they would show themselves in the northern and southern hemisphere. And after that, the red eye in the sky would appear. And we've got a film of that, haven't we? We've got that on our website. All of the prophecies of the Hopi have come true. The two blue Kachinas are here. The red eye in the sky is here. The change is coming. And they've said, jump into the fast-flowing river. The change is now upon you. Jump into that river and celebrate with the ones who are there. But the ones who don't come, don't worry about them. Don't think about them. They're choosing their own path and destiny. So, yeah, we believe the prophecy of the Hopi is correct, that it did actually happen and it has taken place. And they're saying that, Jeff. They're saying to people, the prophecy has now been proven. And all we're doing is confirming that.
Wow. Well, this was a much bigger story and much more imminent than I thought. Though I've obviously since been listening, I've learned it's not as imminent as you would have liked. But you know,
definitely not.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So it's been about an hour and a half, and I'm sure that you're exhausted. I think that we've covered a lot. I can't thank you enough for your time. I'd love to have you guys on again, and now that I know how large the scope is, maybe we can figure out a way to narrow it down to different segments and give them the due attention they deserve. But we'll figure that out, after you've had your coffee and after I've had my dinner, since we're on different sides of the world. Where can people follow you and support your work?
Two places. ForgottenOrigin.com. So that is where most of our articles are and the research. And then our AlienAncestry.net is where we host all of our conferences. And we've actually got one on your Saturday, our Sunday, so coming up. We do them monthly. It's usually the last Saturday for you guys or the last Sunday for us over in Australia every month. And then we have different guests on.
And a lot of them are free, and you need to register, because I tried to click on a couple times and the registration was full.
Was that for the last one, perhaps?
Probably. Probably.
I
was only introduced to you fairly recently, so yeah. So, I guess
we did have some problems, didn't we?
With that one.
Yeah. I thought it was.
We lost one of our avenues that was cut off from us.
We've got one literally coming up in 2 days. We've got a psychic and a PhD for this one. So
we've got a psychic on, and 2 psychics, and they've got 5 degrees and 2 PhDs, and we found that interesting. You had someone who's so academic that was so psychic, and we're going to do a show basically about the esoteric. We've done a lot of shows recently using science and empirical evidence.
Last month we talked about agriculture and talked about Bruce Pascal's The Dark Emu, and we had an elder on from Middle Broken Hill Way talk about what old way stuff. So each month's a different topic.
We have lots of elders on at different times, and we have an even balance of elders that are blackfellas and elders that are whitefellas, don't we? We try and keep both sides of the story going, because we believe in origin, blackfella, whitefella dreaming. Come and join us. It's free. We have that thing up for a full day, don't we? And it's free. And you don't have to watch us straight away.
And then we've got memberships for that. So if people want to then have access to the archives, and then we do monthly Q&As just with our members. So there's a few different levels of engagement as well.
Wonderful. All right. Well, great. So they can find that on AlienAncestry.net. Yes. And the other was, what was the first site?
ForgottenOrigin.com.
ForgottenOrigin.com. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Fascinating stuff. So interesting. I wasn't expecting to see skulls and rings from Atlantis and Lemuria. And I had no idea that
the rocks.
Yeah, I had no idea that the original people's story was so tied to Lemuria and Atlantis. I suspected Lemuria just based on where it's supposed to have been, but hey, this is everything's connected. So I can't thank you all enough. Thank you for honoring me by being on the show, and we'll definitely be in touch and try to catch some of your sessions. They are free, which I think is wonderful. And thank you very much for being on Garden of Doom, and thanks folks for listening. Give us a like, a subscribe, 5 stars, nice reviews, and share with your friends and tell them about the Strongs while you're at it. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.